Good afternoon, Charles Moscowitz here. Welcome to the program. I'm doing some live streaming, and I've got new subscribers to the live stream on Periscope and Twitch and several other venues. And so I'm hoping to build a live stream audience, even though consistently I'm not sure I can do it at the same time every day. Here I am, and I'm giving out a phone number if you'd like to call the program. 617-396-4830. 617-396-4830, and I'll try to take your call if you're listening live. I want to continue the conversation about Trump derangement. I'm studying the topic. Actually, in my sociology class, I wrote a paper called The Social Effects of Trump Derangement, and now I'm hoping to set up a group in the class so we could do a group study on Trump derangement. I don't know how that's going to go. We'll have to see if people are amicable to that. I'll be finding out next week. But the way I define it is that the opposition to President Trump is, I would think, and I would suggest, unique in American history. We have always had opposition, and rightfully, to political figures, and we've always had partisan opposition, and rightfully. To the presidents in power and senators and congressmen and other officials, governors. That's normal, that's natural, that's appropriate, that's good. It actually balances the system. It creates a means by which the other side can be checked naturally by opponents who then are required or forced to present a bill of particulars in terms of why they would do things better. And they're supposed to investigate corruption and the negative aspects of each side. It's a tough game, and it can get very ugly. But the American people are used to that. That's part of freedom. The opposition, however, to President Trump is beyond anything that I've seen. And I mean, it certainly is the case that we've seen extreme and fierce opposition to presidents. We could think of, in my lifetime, Nixon, right? And the man was literally driven out of office I remember those last days. It was like, it was like a Frankenstein movie with people showing up with burning torches outside the White House, ready to have him burned. There was that atmosphere there, and it was for a while. It wasn't the whole thing. And putting aside the question of whether or not he should have left office, that's another question. And there certainly was this kind of vitriol generally around Ronald Reagan, and certainly against George W. Bush in the last couple of years of his presidency. And that was actually driven by some legitimate concerns about involvement in the Iraq War. I mean, there were real issues on the table that people were upset about. I mean, Vietnam was a real issue. People coming home in body bags. Their lives were destroyed. They were committing suicide. That was a national social problem. But the opposition to Trump is greater than any of that. And there's no real reason for it. What is President Trump doing? He governs the country relatively conservatively, but there's no extremism. He's de-escalating America's involvement in foreign wars. You'd think this is something that most people, particularly people on the left, would support. For the first time since World War II, and maybe even as recently as World War I with Wilson, the United States is de-escalating our involvement in perpetual war around the world. We are cutting back on military presence. We are asking our allies to pay for their own defense. These are progressive ideas in the real sense. Domestically, he's held the line on raising taxes. He's cut onerous regulation and duplicate regulation, allowing businesses to function. He's supported trade policies that protect American labor and American industry. He's appointed judges who look at the Constitution. Now, I get the fact that the left is worried about Roe versus Wade. We could debate that. That's a legitimate issue. I don't think that any Supreme Court will overthrow that decision. I think that's settled law, but even if they did, there were ways around that. But the point is that these are things that we expect of conservative presidents, to appoint more conservative judges and officials. His immigration policy, his deportations have not really been noticeably more than his predecessors. The securing of the border, that's something that predecessors going back to Reagan talked about and maybe took half measures. President Trump wants to do more, and he's had nothing but opposition in that regard. The point I'm making here is that his presidency has been relatively normal and relatively conservative. So why this derangement, this feeling that people are ill over it? I mean, I've seen people who might have questionable mental health anyways, or emotional health, become completely unhinged just over the fact that he's there. Oh, the day will come when this horrible oppression is over. I can't wait. I mean, it's like you think that they were suffering under some kind of brutal, jackboot or something. It's actually so disconnected from reality that it's quite bizarre. And that rather than oppose him on the issues, though, they have to take him out. He should be impeached. He should be, Maxine Waters, he should be in prison in solitary confinement. And I think she's expressing the sentiments of a lot of these people, that they really hate Trump personally so much. And, look, I've gotten into some of the theories I have as a student of sociology, in that he's sort of like, in a way, like Guy Fawkes at the Parliament showing up with dynamite when it comes to the establishment. He doesn't do or function in the way that the establishment expects our leaders to function. He doesn't speak in this kind of totalitarian language that, as described by French scholar Hélène Benescon, this demagogic style where everything is rehearsed, and they speak with a kind of a phony British accent, and they use euphemism and sophistry and indirection and subversion and lies, basically. But they do it in a way that fits a style of pseudo-intellectualism and creates an illusion that they know what they're talking about and that they have some kind of a legitimate authority. Well, Trump doesn't do any of that. He speaks plainly. He speaks bluntly. He doesn't use a teleprompter unless he's delivering a speech. And by the way, some of his speeches are incredibly amazing, particularly the one recently at the UN. He speaks from the heart. Now, I'm not saying that everything he says is true. I think he tends to embellish, and he doesn't always get it right. But for the most part, there is a sense of honesty about that. And I think that really upsets the apple cart, the establishment, that is used to living in this sort of a haze of almost unreality. And, so I think that upsets them. I also think that underneath all of this rage, and you have the useful idiots who are triggered by the media, who promotes these bizarre conspiracy theories. And the most recent one is that he wants to create a moat on the southern border with alligators. Completely fabricated, completely made up, but yet people are like, they're inhaling this stuff. And the media is lying, and he's calling the media out on that finally. But I think what's going on, besides a significant cultural shift that he represents, which is one toward putting America first, one more toward a greater honesty, a common sense ideas, like putting our own sovereign nation first over others, which every nation should do. I think what's going on, however, under the hood, if you will, is that there is a war between what President Trump has called the deep state, what Fletcher School of Law Diplomacy professor Michael Glennon called The Double Government. He was a Senate legal advisor under Clinton, so he's not particularly partisan. Brilliant book, by the way. That this so-called deep state, this double government, it did not expect Trump to win. They were shocked. They were thrown off their rocker over this. They expected Hillary, who is a denizen of this, to just continue on with the same corrupt policies. And the corruption really is ideological, but it's also real. These people are crooks. That corruption in the American administration, I think, in the real sense, began as far back as the administration of Ulysses S. Grant, who had corrupt cabinet members and who didn't really do the right thing in terms of getting rid of those people because he felt personally loyal to them. I don't think Grant was personally corrupt at all. No one ever said he was. And there were many things about his administration that were fantastic. But he did set a tone which allowed for a certain degree of corruption. And I don't think that we've ever quite gotten rid of that since then. I think that the whole endeavor of corruption took an upswing, first with Nixon, but more significantly with Clinton, because Clinton was personally corrupt. They were taking, the level of corruption with that couple is a story that probably will never be completely told. But if you take a look at every scandal, every major scandal in this country and all around the world, they have a fingerprint on it. They were so corrupt in ways that are much beyond what we can get into right now. And they internationalized corruption in a way that it had never been done before. I think Nixon kind of started some of that. But they were making deals with China, giving them security secrets in exchange for donations and money, and selling the White House bedroom, and just the worst kind of corruption. And they got away with it. They got away with all of it. And this, I think, led to a corruption, particularly in the Democratic Party, but also in the Republican Party to a certain extent, although much less so, that has continued right up to Trump, and that Trump is threatening to finally begin to expose it. And I think that's exactly what he's doing, and I think that's why they're squealing with rage. That's what this whole Biden thing is about. That was just business as usual. He didn't do anything that they all weren't doing. They used their power of office to make deals for their family members and then use pressure on these foreign governments to make those deals happen and to keep them happening. That's what Biden did. The problem is that on the Republican side, you have people like that as well. Not to single anyone out, but Mitch McConnell, I think that his wife had a deal with China that's very similar to Hunter Biden. The politicians themselves can't do it, so they have an immediate family member do it. And it's this kind of corruption that pervades the system, and it's very dangerous. President Trump is calling it out. Yes, he's being partisan about it. Yeah, he's doing the Democrat, but at least he's doing half of it, as opposed to nothing, which is what Obama did, and which was what most of his predecessors did. And I think that it's hopefully not too little too late, but it has to be done, because if it's not done, then this country will devolve into another one of these corrupted and compromised governments similar to those you find in countries around the world, usually smaller countries who are more easy to control. But it's a dangerous precedent, and President Trump is taking it on. So they want to impeach him. And the useful idiots, people who are, I think, emotionally damaged and don't see anything objectively, who have been sucking in the Kool-Aid, if you will, who cannot articulate exactly why they oppose Trump at all. They just make these vague prattlings about, he's taken money away from this group and is cruel to public servants and just, utter illogical stuff. They can't articulate. They've been brought along with this agenda, which is actually at its core quite witting and quite conscious in terms of preserving their corrupt power and stopping anyone who threatens it. And the one person who is threatening it now is Donald Trump, both literally in terms of his Attorney General investigating these corrupt situations and hopefully bringing indictments, but also culturally and stylistically by his honesty, by his refusal to play this crazy game. He refuses to kowtow to the identity politics. You know, I mean, we could get into that at another time. I don't want to go on too long. But suffice it to say that, you know, we should all support, whether we like his positions or not, whether we like his policies or not, we should support his efforts, because otherwise this country is devolving into not just a criminal state, but a state that's divided to a degree that we won't be talking to each other. And we need to get some rationality here. Anyway, again, Charles Moscowitz here, and thanks for watching, everyone.